doing some stuff with Steven Tyler. Gary Sharon was doing some stuff with Joe Perry. So now I think a lot of that has subsided. Aerosmith is doing the residency. Hopefully that means they will get to work on a new record. I know that they started. I know they were working on some things, but I honestly don't know where it stands and if we'll get it or not this year. But I know it is something that Nuno told me when I saw him on the cruise. They absolutely need to focus on finishing. This one comes from Eric, and he is in, it looks like Cedar, Montana. He said, Eddie, loved the recent interview with Mike Tramp and Jesse James Dupree. Well, Mike was on this show. Jesse was on the Hair Nation show. But thank you, Eric, for listening to both shows. He writes, I have a question regarding musicians losing their love of performing recording. Do you ever feel bad for the guys who just simply lose their love of music? Steve Perry, Vito Bratta, Chris DeGarmo. I find it sad that someone so talented just falls out of love for something like that. Eric, I'll tell you what. It may be hard to figure, being that you are a fan of these artists and I am as well, but I would much rather have an artist retire if they've lost the passion than go through the motions and not be great and only do it, and only do it to milk the fans. So to answer your question, no, I don't feel bad. No, I understand it. Or yes, I do understand it, I should say. And I'll take that any day over an artist just basically faking it. You know, to go through the motions, so to speak. Vito Bratta had some health concerns. You know, here's the other thing that fans don't know. These people are human beings. And things change in their worlds, meaning family stuff, marriages, mothers, fathers, kids, finances, commitments. Things change. Some of these guys who dropped out did it for various reasons. You know, when Steve Perry was on with me, he dropped out because he had met a woman and he fell in love with this woman, and then she had cancer and he looked after her. Human stuff happens. And that's a part of it that as fans, we never take into account. We only see these people we love as these music icons. And that's all they should be doing, is making us happy and playing and recording and doing what we want them to do. Not taking into account what they need or what they have going on behind the scenes. And, you know, in Vito's case, he has a brother that he takes care of. He has a mother who's, you know, quite old at this point that he looks after. And he's committed to his family, and he doesn't have any desire to play in nightclubs and to do this anymore at the age he's at. And I respect that. I understand it. It is not easy for guys at that level. Phil Verone, who is the singer, or I'm sorry, the drummer currently in Jakey Lee's band, but he was in Saigon Kick. He's played in a bunch of bands. He was in Skid Row. He just posted a whole thing online. He said, I'm in my early 50s. I'm done. I'm done being in vans and buses and playing clubs. I'm over it. And he just announced his retirement from drumming. When you're working at the club level, when that's the level you draw at, it's really not that easy. It's really grueling. And I respect the guys that battle it out and keep doing it, but I also understand and respect the guys that say, you know what, I've had enough, this isn't for me anymore, and I'm not going to fake it. Or they just find other interests that they have huge passion in, like Chris DeGarmo, who was totally into aviation. And, you know, a lot changes with these guys as they get older, and especially if they have kids. If you want to be around to see your kids grow up and be a part of their lives, most artists do want to do that, but they can't because they make their living being on the road. But some artists just are like, you know what? I don't care. I'm out. I'm not going to go on the road anymore, and find another thing to do. Keith Nelson, the guitar player in Buck Cherry, got tired of the road. Buck Cherry tours constantly. Keith felt too much. He had a young child. He got into doing music production, and he got off the road. I understand it. It is a balance that's kind of hard to strike, but for some guys, they have to go out and play anywhere and everywhere because it's the only way they can make a living. So I see all sides of it. And as much as selfishly as fans, we'd like to see these people continue, I understand why they don't. Thank you for your email. This comes from Ryer, who is in North Dakota. I love your show. Listen every day on the app. Thank you. He writes, last summer I attended a small one-day music fest in Bismarck, North Dakota that was very poorly attended due to poor planning, management, and bad weather. It was made up of newer national metalcore bands. Only about 20 to 30 people attended all day, and most of the bands put on a great show for those of us who were there. It was like being at a private show. Do the bands lose money in this situation? The band Red was scheduled to perform, but posted on their Facebook page that the promoter contacted them and told them not to come. Also, will a band's management ever blacklist a town area due to poor attendance in the past? So, Ryer, and I hope I'm saying your name right, the way the business works is if you are a band that has it together at least, meaning you have a good agent, is that when you book a show, you, on contract, meaning when you agree to the terms for what you're going to get paid to do it, usually collect a deposit of 50%, half the money, which is non-refundable. So if the show cancels or whatever happens, you keep that money. And then when you show up at the gig, most bands insist on the remaining 50% to be paid before they take the stage and play. Because if the promoter tries to stiff them on money and they've already played, they have no recourse. So that's how it works. So to answer your question, if something is really poorly attended, if the bands have proper representation and their contracts were buttoned up, they should have at least gotten paid half. And if they play, they should have been paid their balance regardless of how many people are there. It's the promoter who books the show that's responsible for promoting the date, right? Promoting, meaning marketing, advertising, radio support, and is responsible for paying the bands the agreed to contract. And look, agents find out very quickly towns, promoters, venues that don't treat the acts properly and pay, and those people go away very quickly. It's not held against the town. It could be held against the promoter because you quickly find out they don't know what they're doing and they didn't properly support it, or they booked a band that just, they didn't know what they're doing. I mean, there are more people promoting rock shows now than I've ever seen who have no clue what they're doing. Every single day I look at lineups and I say to myself, who on God's earth did in that organization thought that a bill like that is going to draw people? But you have a lot of really inexperienced people. You have a lot of people who are just fans, and they decide they have a little money to spend and they want to put on a rock show, and they find out that it ain't that easy, and they find out that there's really no draw. See, when you are a concert promoter, you cannot book shows based on your passion for what you personally like. You need to book with your brain on what draws and what sells. You can do it on passion if you don't care about losing money and you get money from other places and you're just doing it for fun and you're okay taking the loss, but there's only a very few people willing to do that. You have to book, if you like a band that just doesn't draw, you book them all you want, you're going to lose a ton of money every time. You'll have your own private concert. You have to book based on research and knowing your market and knowing what really draws. And there are a ton of people, even at the larger levels now, that I'm shocked. Here in New York City, I'm shocked at some of the bookings I see. I see them in advance, and I know nobody's going to those shows. I know, but the promoter didn't know because he would have never booked it if he did. He just gets bad information or inexperienced people or green people who don't know what they're doing. I see it all the time. But the bands, if they show up and they play, regardless of how many people are there, they should have been paid in full before they take the stage. That's how it's supposed to work. But it's never held against the city, Ryer, it's held against the promoter. And promoters operate in multiple cities. This email looks like it's from Austin Salit. He writes,